Hey everybody, this is Drey and Tay again for the TV CRE podcast, Treasure Valley Commercial Real Estate Podcast. And today we're here with Chad Olsen. This is episode number 5, and we're excited to kind of learn about a local builder, developer, an Idahoan for now, and half-time Arizonan, I would say, kind of a snowbird, and also a Tony Stark lookalike when he has a goatee.
That's sometimes true.
So yeah.
Everything you said is sometimes true.
So we're just excited to do this. And actually today, you guys, we're on site with a build that is being completed of a 6-unit apartment complex on Warm Springs Road that we're just wrapping up with. So we're gonna probably talk about that a little bit, and we're gonna learn about Chad. So I'll let Taylor take the first question here.
All right, well Chad, talk to us a little bit about your journey.
Okay.
We know where you're at now in developing real estate and construction, but how'd you get started?
I got involved just doing cabinets. Originally I started doing cabinets for other builders, and cabinets seemed to be such an integral part of the whole, the core of the house. And I was, that led to me working with the framers to try to get, windows in the right spot so the cabinets would line up. And that slowly got me confident enough to try a house on my own. And I tried that house, and that was in 1993, and that was about 2,000 houses ago.
Okay.
So I've done a lot.
93.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, obviously that time frame covers a lot. So
yeah.
Maybe talk to us about your first project where you really kind of took the plunge.
Yeah, I just built a single home, and it was a time when the market was quite lively, as well as it is now. It was really robust. There was a lot of people looking around. And I think what really helped me out is I didn't sell that house. Not that I couldn't have sold it. I kept it as a model, and I began the process of build jobs. I was more conservative, wanting to get into the build job arena as opposed to just doing specs. Right. And as I got a little bit bigger, I kind of started to shy away from the build jobs. And I started doing custom homes and did a lot of big custom homes. And then I stumbled onto an old apartment complex over in the North End called Lancaster, and we remodeled that. Okay. And it was just revolutionary for me. While I was waiting to sell that project, people were paying me rent. Mm-hmm. So it was the first time in my life, instead of paying the interest payment to the bank for the spec home, that I was actually being paid. Right. So if it didn't sell for 30 days, it was actually okay.
I guess it's actually good, maybe.
Yeah, I was actually getting more money. And so I started doing that, and of course I held them a little bit longer each time, and then I got into, more of a tax savings, doing more long-term capital gains, 1031, stuff like that. And so that just keep letting to bigger and bigger projects. Yep. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So a lot of folks kind of have their go-to model, or maybe their niche, or the box that they kind of fit their projects in that they want to engage. Do you kind of have a model or a niche for how you evaluate whether it's something you want to get into?
I think that you just always have to start with an exit strategy in mind. If you can get rid of that project, no one likes to lose money, and no one likes to even break even, but breaking even is better than losing money. And I've just seen people throughout the years, it's been a long build cycle for me, like 25 years. I just watch people hang on and die, and guys that can get their project gone and move it down the road, and obviously we look at other builders in our market, and we've had some have been around a long time and have never changed from the product they do. And so for me, I kind of stumbled around. I was a little ADD in the idea that I really liked doing big custom homes, but eventually I got burned out of that. And it got to the point.
Was it burned out or boredom?
Well, I don't know that it was ever boredom, because you're always doing new things, and they were just, everything had to be bigger and better than the last time that you did it. But it got to the point where it took literally me having to sit and babysit every part of the process. And so I realized that I couldn't be 2 places at once.
Can't scale under that model.
Couldn't get bigger, yeah.
It's like an attorney bill in hours, right?
Yeah. If everything is all on you, then you're the bottleneck. Mm-hmm. And so when I changed that process, but I did take a lot of those really cool ideas, and sometimes I do one of those ideas and go, wow, the bang for the buck on that was extraordinary. Why don't we do that over here?
Right, yeah.
Why don't we mass produce that? Or if we did that, could we do it a little bit different and tweak it? So I started getting to where my apartments, I felt like, stood out. And so when I did that one on Lancaster, I actually won an award from the city of Boise.
Oh, wow.
Because a lot of people said, well, you should just destroy that thing. You do the neighborhood meeting for everybody, and everybody, there was only 2 pitchforks. But I thought it was
That was a little hot.
it was a pretty serious thing. But we got done, and it looked great, and we got it nominated and won an award from the city. And just by taking a couple little extra steps to make something nice, and it also kind of leads back to that exit strategy.
Right.
We never really had to exit anything. Our products usually always sell. Is it the market? Are we building the right thing? Is it look good? Probably a little bit of all of it.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit of all of it.
So do you follow market dynamics when you go into a build job, or do you what do you use as your prerequisite, your understandings?
Well, I think I do. I think I do follow some dynamics. Of course, we're not putting oak in anymore. And we're doing most of the LVP. So you're switching around this new modern look. It's more light, more windows. So of course we're gonna adapt with that. White cabinets versus, I don't know if you remember the dark cabinet era, the dark ages. And so yeah, for sure I do. But I think there's also latitude within those dynamics to have self-expression. One of the reasons I like doing big houses is it's artistic. And I enjoyed that part of it. But it just got, the art wore off. If you draw enough of the same paintings, you're done.
Right.
And so that kind of wore off after a while, and it got to this other point where I wanted to, be more places at once than I could be, and so that was really cool. But again, I really liked my journey of doing those big custom homes and then coming back to a multifamily look, because we're able to introduce some of those ideas so that, ultimately we always built these things for us to own them. Yeah. So like this project that we're in, when I looked at the preliminary plan, because I didn't design this one. This one came with the lot. And I looked at it and I said, is that something I would live in? And the unit we're in, I thought about living in this unit because I love this area so much. I'm starting to get where kids are leaving, and I thought, when I just cruise out here and just hang out in one of these units. And I really liked this unit. It was a 3-bedroom. And so, yeah, I'd live in it. It looks great from the street. It's got good curb appeal. And so I thought, yeah, I would do that. But I do see product a lot, or people give me product and they go, this is what was approved. I wouldn't build that, and I wouldn't live in it.
Yeah.
And so.
It's a good question to ask, right?
Yeah.
You live in it.
Yeah, unless you change that thing, you're not going to sell it. And usually, I think most times, if you're willing to live in it, someone else is too.
Yeah.
So.
That's good. And so it's kind of fun to watch how your path has changed from how you've grown in the construction industry, in the development industry. Through this, I've also kind of been akin to hearing what your process has been with your investing. So how has your investing strategy changed with kind of what's going on as you've developed more and developed more wealth? How have you changed what you're investing in? It obviously sounds like if you were going to invest in somewhere to live, you'd want to live in it. But what about your just investing strategy outside of residential?
Well, I would say it's really kind of mimics what we talked about. When we were doing custom homes, I had to be there all the time. When I do multifamily, I'm really maintaining those residents that reside at the place, right? I lost my job, or we're getting married, so we need to figure out, we're getting a baby. It's not always bad news. It's just news. It could be good news, but for whatever reason, you're really on a play-by-play in these people's lives. And I don't know how you can move much further beyond that. You can get a property manager and you can do that kind of stuff, but it just seemed like those guys get spread a little thin and then your projects aren't as good. So I've kind of moved to more of a hands-off approach. We talk about mailbox money, but how hands-off really is it? It may come in the mailbox, but if it takes a lot of effort to get it, I think when we say the word mailbox money, like a residual income, it depends on what effort we're having to exert to receive that residual income. So I've kind of moved to more a hands-off approach with some of my investments, to more of a kind of a land lease type thing where, you've got bigger retail residents that are like businesses like Chick-fil-A and Panera Bread and things like that, where it's, I think, a little bit safer. So
you've moved into the commercial market where you're acquiring land and you're trusting long-term, full tenant, triple net leases to just kind of send you the money coming in. You don't have to be worrying about the taxes and the insurance and the expenses. And
yeah, you're vetting out like you're vetting out a tenant, right? To rent the location that we're standing in, and you're looking at their income, and it's really no different. You're just looking at the company, and you go, oh, hey, Chick-fil-A is out of debt.
Yeah, I mean, you can
That's
see
a great
you
company.
can see corporate credit, right? Is
Sure.
what we call it. And you can see someone that you would trust. You would
Yeah.
say it's easy to lease to a Walmart, but
Yeah.
it's different to lease to a mom and pop who's getting their first startup selling iron-on patches in Boise. So
It is, and it's not like you don't want them to succeed. It's just that, again, to replicate, to be in more places than you can just be, you just have to really have some hands-off investments, or you have to have a good manager.
Yeah.
And so I've never been able to find that person because they became a real estate agent or an attorney.
And so a lot of people, right, hedge against like societal and economic changes with these long-term guaranteed leases with corporate credit. And so you've kind of moved to that model. Do you feel like you're going to stay with the developing? You're going to continue? Do you want to? Or you think this is an artistic part of your life that you're going to want to express? Like,
Yeah, believe it or not, I may go back to big houses. I didn't mind doing the big houses. I just didn't like the pace because, you had a lot of debt. These were big houses, they were big commitments. And, if that became kind of irrelevant, then they're the best to do. They're the funnest. You can express yourself the most.
yeah, recently there was a famous architect. Did you see that Matt Boucher just got that listing from a guy, Todd something. It's a $4.5 million house in Boise, and it's spectacular. It's like he's a nationwide leading architect. But you can see, like there was a video, he did a promotional video of every little touch from like a rotating watch little thing that you keep for the people who have nice watches in their house, and like just different lighting and the outside fireplaces, and just it's cool. You can put your own. It's like artistic, right? You can put a touch on it, and you can get your emotions involved. And
I've always thought it was the coolest thing because I always tell people who paint a drawing can walk by and look at that drawing and they can appreciate, especially, and they can maybe remember each stroke that they made. And someone who maybe molds something out of clay can do the same thing. But when you're a builder, you get to live in your art. You get to interact with it. It's three-dimensional. Right. You move in, you move out. It's daylight, it's dark. You get to see the lighting that you chose. You get everything, and it's just a real 3D, self-immersive art. Yeah. So for that reason, I like the career path that I chose.
Yeah. Let me think of change topics just a little bit. So a lot of our listeners that I've talked to recently have been like, hey, I like listening to your thing and I want to invest. Like, how do I get into commercial real estate? How do I get into that? So I would say, do you have any good tips for someone who wants to get into maybe starting out as developing some multifamily or developing some
maybe building their first house or
single family or even developing a commercial spot or investing in commercial real estate? Just some steps that maybe you took. I know that's
I definitely think that there are tips. I think the tips that once were able to be used, I mean, we used to have a development and anybody could buy a lot there. Mm-hmm. Then it became a development where a builder's team only had that. Mm-hmm. And we had developers and we had builders. And now what we have is this all-inclusive builder, developer.
Agent.
No one builds there. And agency, that's correct.
Yeah.
And in-house attorney.
Right.
And no one builds there. And so what kind of once would have worked, it's become more difficult to make that work. Mm-hmm. Because like when I started, it was a developer who had several lots and you could come in and buy a lot there and you could build and I built my own house. Yeah. To your point, Taylor, I built my own house as the first house. That was the one I made the model.
Yeah.
And I sold off of that. But the same thing, we were able to go out, find another subdivision who could sell us a lot. We would take the lot price, put together the building cost, put it together, make a profit, and sell it to somebody. But right now, to jump in, even seasoned builders, like let's say I was a superintendent for a company for 20 years. I know every part of the process. But actually getting in and building that subdivision or getting that lot in that subdivision is quite difficult. And that's even for other bigger size builders. You know, everything that's going in front is all owned by the same big builder. And I say national, but there's some local guys that are really big.
But now we have these build for rent communities, which are taking off the idea of homeownership. So now, because it's a higher return on the capital invested, people are, like institutional investors are coming in and hiring those to build whole neighborhoods for rent. And so we're
Yeah,
seeing
3
the kind of
years ago.
American dream change in front of our eyes.
Yeah, 3 years ago, I had somebody for the first time come to me. I was building 75 single families. Again, I got this, as I've been around, I do get calls for the creativity. We talk about the creativity of building something architecturally. There's also the creative of a deal. And I don't think they're that far apart. Not really. One, you're using light fixtures. One, you're using variable rates of interest. But it's an art, I think. And so a lot of these projects that I've gotten through banks, and where no one else could maybe figure out the equation. I did that project downtown, that old warehouse, and of course, when no one wants it, when no one can figure it out, the price is a lot cheaper. And maybe that's what had to happen. Maybe the price needs to come down enough to make it feasible for someone to figure out what to do, even if that means destroying it. And I was just here on Park Center, and there was that big Park Center fitness center that was there.
Oh, yeah.
That thing was massive and huge. They ripped it down. It finally came down enough in price where the land came up in value enough to
justify the cost of taking
justify. Yeah. So I got a lot of those. Anyway, I'm doing a 75 unit single family subdivision, and have a guy that comes in and offers to buy the whole thing for houses, for rentals. And that was the first time. And that was like the combination of my two worlds, because I did multifamily, and I just did this single family unit project because it was a good deal. And I was like, I can do this. Well, I'm going to get something else ready to go. And of course, times to get things developed, back to the tips that people would use. Because the next thing you might say is, well, why don't I get my own piece of land? I'll make my own lots. And that's almost what you're going to have to do. But realize this too, there's a long line of a lot of people trying to develop things ahead of you. That's why when you get a project that's, build ready, that's a big deal.
It is.
That's a big deal. There's a lot
And
of
we're
work.
seeing a lot of paper plats getting traded right now that are build ready. I mean, not a lot that are build ready, but a lot that are not build ready that are just waiting on entitlements. And I think a lot of people who are buying those are underestimating the amount of workload that's on each individual city department. And
for sure.
And the meetings that they have to go through, and the neighborhood association hearings, and it's just
they've
been an
actually
interesting
got
process.
it worse than anybody in the entire industry, and I'll tell you why. At the beginning of January, that city council sets the budget for that planning and zoning department. Well, if Sally or Johnny, who's the associate planning director, gets another offer to go work for a national builder and can make way more money an hour, they have to backfill that position with somebody. But the wage is down here because it was determined in January.
Yeah.
They can't go above the wage. It's not like you and I have the flexibility to go, well, I don't really want to do that. But okay, let's pay a little extra, but we'll get it. Maybe we'll get some more business out of it or whatever. It doesn't matter. The same amount of business is going to come in no matter what. It's just them being able to have the ability to service that business. And as a result, sometimes they just shut things down.
Yeah.
There's been moratoriums on developing.
Yep.
Right.
Caldwell
do
had
it.
a moratorium on development.
Is it still going?
Well, it was. No, it's been lifted, but they had one.
And then that kind of reverberates through other entities. Now you have Southwest District Health or Central District Health, the health departments. Same thing, staffing issues. And you've got these other, Ada County Highway District, Canyon County Highway District, the fire departments. And every part of that process is taking longer.
Yeah.
And then you get the joy of starting the house.
Yeah,
And then you have all those supply issues.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of risk for sure.
It does.
Well, we've highlighted one challenge that a lot of folks are dealing with. That's working with the government agencies. What are some other challenges that you've seen over the last couple of years?
Oh, probably mostly is labor. It's a real supply-demand issue. I always tell people, when the price of the home exceeds a certain amount and people still want that home, typically, if we look back at past migration, called the Dust Bowl, right? People come over, but all kinds of people came over. Craftsmen came over, doctors came over, all different kinds of people came over. But now, only people that have a little bit of money come over.
Right.
Because the price has gone up to this high enough level. So that causes two challenges. Who's coming to help us build all the new houses? Nobody, because they can't afford it. And double that by saying, now who's going to live here? Because the rents have been driven up.
Right.
I know at least 2 or 3 people who have had to move out of the valley because they can't afford to live here. And that's in the world I live in. That means 3 less construction guys. And so we're not getting people to come electricians aren't moving here. But the same electricians are here being asked to perform even more work.
Right.
And they can't do it because they don't have apprentices. We get to the point where you can't even yell at anybody anymore because it's just like what it is. Like on this project that we're on, we built this thing entirely off of a power pole. Individual heaters were used because we had the mini splits that you can see up there, and it's all electric. Can't put heat in it. So we had to use individual heaters. Couldn't get power. Why? Well, that's another, not a government agency, but close. Idaho Power has staffing issues.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's so funny because you call up and you go, well, hey, I want my power. And they go, well, it's 5 to 7 days. And you go, okay, now it's not even like that. We can't tell you when we'll be there. Literally.
It's like the cable guy will show up between March 3rd and 28th, between 5 and 10.
Right.
Yeah.
It was literally like, we'll be there sometime next year. And so that's what it was. And so you don't know, you can't plan anything. So a project like this, it takes a lot longer. And I think that is a common pitfall when we talk about the length of time to get things done. When people go out and they get financing, they've got to be very aware of maybe doubling build times. You can't Google it and go, how long does it typically take to, well, that typical is gone. It's gone for a few reasons. COVID's one factor. But I would say primarily it has to do with no one's coming to help us build all these new houses. Yeah. If we're pulling 4,000 new permits, who are the people building the new 4,000 permits? Yeah. Who are those people?
And we're not training the trades, and they're not sexy, exciting tech jobs.
Well, then you get COVID. There's an interplay of COVID a little bit, where now we have QSRs, quick service retail, that are now, hey, we're going to start you at $15. Mm-hmm. Whoa, that's $1 more than a journeyman electrician starts. I'd rather just do that
instead of crawling around and doing
that'd be easier for me.
Right.
I don't want to get in a crawl space and climb and get wet, and maybe get a cold. Right? I just go there and flip a burger. So that's what I would say.
So we've been asking everybody this question.
Yeah.
What do you think is on the horizon? Like what's coming? I mean, interest rates. The Fed increased the interest rates, I think 50 bips, right? And then, so what do you think?
There's another one on the table.
Yeah.
I thought
There's another raise.
Dips, right?
Yep. Another one on the table.
Plan. Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you see it? You've been around for a while. You've been in the construction industry. We'll probably bring this back in a year and say,
yeah,
Chad was right.
Or he was wrong.
We wouldn't tell that to you.
Yeah, okay. At least you build up the ego.
Yeah.
I would say this. I would say that, there's an old song that says, if I claim to be a wise man, it surely means I do not know. Yeah. And I really do think that. I think anybody that has I think it can go just literally a myriad of ways. So I think when people stand up and they go, hey, it's going to be this, it's going to be A. What they forget, there's just all these like little tweakings that could change things. For example, every time the interest rate goes up, well, it has to go up because we're going to have to do something to combat inflation a little bit. So it's going to go up. Maybe we feel the pain for just a little bit, but maybe it eases the inflation. So maybe it's good, for everybody around. It just feels like it hurts in one particular sector. So we raise the interest rate a little bit. So, but as that gets raised, there's, a whole group of people that can't buy a house. So what are they going to do? They're going to have to rent. So they're going to go to a supply that's already small.
Right.
So rents go up. So we could see an inversion where rents become higher than owning. Mm-hmm. Or if we go to own now, even though the interest rate's gone up, my payments are going up. So typically, I think in the past, and I've owned a couple hundred rentals here and there through the years, and I own 36 right now. And what you always see is, you see whatever mortgages are, you kind of see rents trail right behind it. Because the old idea has always been, well, why would I rent if I could go buy? Yeah, exactly. Unless there was an extenuating circumstance, which there are. We live in a technological world now. People can live anywhere and work anywhere. Right. So you don't have to really, and if you want to move with a company, I think that's kind of been a deterrent to go, oh, now I've got to rent my house. Right. I don't want to get in this. Yeah. I got 30% of maintenance. It's easier for me just to call the butler. The property manager who fixes everything in my place when I call him up.
I don't have to mow a yard.
Nope, don't have to do anything. He picks up the dog poop, 911 comes and takes care of that. So all of a sudden it just trails right behind it. But I think that supply demand. If I'm renting a unit and I stick it out there at $2,000, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and the phone blows up, I can't even handle the calls. Yeah. So I can choose two things. One, I can pick the very best client that I think I can get at the $2,000 range, or I can just raise the rent. And I raise it. And then over here, this apartment complex does the same thing. If there's more calls than available spaces, then the rent's got to go up. That's just how it works.
And it's happening, and we're seeing it, right?
And it happens.
We're seeing it in our valley.
And now this further adds to making more supply, because those craftsmen I just talked about, they can't live there now. Where are they living? They got to move to a cheaper area. And so
essentially we come into a place where we're going to have a need for quality workers. They're not going to have anywhere to live in the valley. And it seems like just a cycle downward.
it feels like that. It feels like I don't know how to get it back to an equilibrium where we're building some product, it's healthy, but it's not crazy healthy. You know, it's not overboard where we can't make product for people. And so, yeah, it gets frustrating to be able to do it. So on my end, maybe part of the reason why I've turned to some of those bigger companies is that it's too hard to manage. If I was a big national builder and I did, 1,000 homes a year, I could probably have a pretty captive audience with a group of subcontractors. But if I'm just picking and choosing, again, back to another pitfall for a brand new investor, he doesn't have a lot of buying power.
On the labor side.
Yeah, what does he do to get him to come to do that job? With me, I kind of leveraged, long-term relationships that I've had with many guys for over a period of time. And, but again, we can say what we can say about all kinds of markets. We can say that, Vegas is bigger and Salt Lake is bigger and Phoenix is even bigger than all of that. But in a lot of those places, they have a lot more people building those houses.
Right.
You just made me think of probably our final question, unless you have one after this, but I was thinking, and we haven't asked anybody this yet, but I've thought about it before. So what's the value of a good name in a small market like this? Because you made me just think, like, Chad, you can go to people that you know and that you respect and that you can say, hey, we've done deals before and you know who I am, this is my reputation. What do you think the value of a name is in a small market like Boise?
Well, specifically to my trade, I think the number one most important thing that if I was a little guy, let's just say that I decided that, you mentioned I spent some time in Phoenix, and let's just say that I was going to build my own house in Phoenix, and I closed on my lot 2 days ago, which I did. So I'm going to build my own house. So what am I going to do? I'm the new small investor in Phoenix, and I'm going to build my own house. So I think there's a lot of things you could do. Can I get a cash discount? And I think if you're in a realm, it's like the old thing where you show the briefcase and here's all the cash.
Yeah.
It's literally it's really a basic, human nature, human behavior type thing. It's like, can I get a cash discount? Oh, well, hold on. Are you paying cash? Yes, I am. Just because those big builders have a lot of work doesn't always mean they have every little detail that a person would like. People like to get paid. We shot some video earlier today. Yeah. And we were out there and we were watching that paving. Yep. That guy is one of the guys think about this little job that we're sitting at. How did I get him to come over from that big, huge development over there, which he does those too? Paying him when he walks off. So even an experienced builder in this market, cash talks. So you have to go back to some of those age-old techniques. I said earlier, some of those don't work, but some of them still do. And so you go, well, hey, can I get a cash discount? He might say, well, what does that mean? Does that mean green dollars or no, it means like right when you walk off. And there's a little bit of risk in that. You have to understand, is the job done? Am I getting everything done? But the idea of these guys that are the subcontractors, the guys that are actually doing the work, they're the most important guys. They really are.
But you're relational, so I'm saying what's the good about keeping a good name for yourself too? Like
well,
treating
if you don't
people
ever
well.
Pay them,
yeah, so in the valley, treating your people well, and how do you think that?
I think ironically, the valley's gotten big enough that you could burn a couple people and you could bounce off a couple other people, but it didn't used to be that way.
Yeah.
When I was here, if you didn't pay one framer and you called the other one, he already knew that you didn't pay that guy. Now we don't even know each other. We've gotten so big we don't even know each other. But no, I think it's good, and I think that does happen where, unfortunately, and even I've had problems. It happens. Someone doesn't get paid. We work on a credit system in our country. Yeah. Peter pays John to pay Paul, and we rob Peter, right? Sometimes because John didn't pay Paul. I get that, and so that's even happened to me at times. And but the best thing to do is always just to make sure that the money is there. That's what gives you the good name. Paying your people on time or agreed terms, I think, is what really.
But I also
gets you.
watched you go around. You talk to all the guys on the site. You're friendly. You're kind.
Well, that's true. That's true. But again, you can't replicate. I mean, we could have a couple national builders who have never been to their site, and they think that's a great thing. Yeah. They actually call that a win. I never even went to that site. Me, it's a different thing. I like to see what's being built. But then again, we get compliments like we just received a little bit ago, where our potential buyer walks through and goes, wow, this is so well done. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that's good. It feels good to hear that. It's good energy.
Well, we'll end on that because that's good, and we don't want to keep everybody any longer. But thank you, Chad, for taking the time to do this podcast.
No worries.
We always do ask people if they wanted to be able to ask you questions or get a hold of you. Are you on social media, or do you have a company webpage? Or okay.
I'm in the
message the podcast, and we'll put you.
Message us if you have any questions.
Yeah.
It's good. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks, Taylor.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Jack.